I'm sitting and looking at my future ex-wife Laura and my best friend. We've been married for 25 years. Robert and I have been friends for 23 years. My former best friend became the last one. Shit, as soon as he first started using my wife. Look, Steve, you don't need that gun, Bob said. Whatever it is, we can discuss it rationally. You have nothing to fear from me. Please take your finger off the trigger. My Glock 45 was lying flat on the armrest of my chair, my finger on the trigger. I don't think it will be good for my health. After all, you're 60 pounds heavier than me and 6 inches taller. I saw the photos at your house with your SEAL team buddies. You can wring my neck in about 20 seconds. No, thanks. I think we'd better sit here until Carol gets here. She dropped your youngest off at softball practice and will be here soon. Listen, Steve, said my cheating wife, Laura. I do not know what you think is going on. I demand that you stop this right now, or I will. What will you do, Laura? I waved the gun. If you get up, I'll shoot you in the kneecap. Why don't we just sit here in silence? And while we're doing that, I'm betting that if you two think hard, maybe you can find out in the back of your pea-sized brains what it all means. Now, why don't we sit here and play a quiet game? The first one who tells about everything will remain intact, and I will shoot the other one. The two sat stunned. I just stared at them as they started sweating and fidgeting back and forth on the couch. I started to remember the best days when Laura and I first met. To hell with that. Who cares about that? What's important now is one small comment a few months ago that got me thinking. Carol and Bob were at a barbecue on Saturday afternoon when Laura came over with a couple of cold beers. She handed them to us and said, "For my husbands." I spat beer out of my nose when she said that. Bob just grinned. What was that? I asked. Steve, I have 3 husbands. Recovering quickly, she giggled and said, I have a husband at work, a husband at the carpool, and a husband whom I really love. It's you, Steve. I laughed and she kissed me, running her tongue down my throat. She had never done this before. My stomach twisted into a knot. I started paying attention to the two of them, and nothing. I didn't see anything unusual. I started checking security systems and cloud records. I pulled out years of archived records stored in the archive, and nothing. Could they have done this many years before we had surveillance cameras? But she said, husbands, as if she meant the present. Over the next few months, I went through the phone logs and all the emails on her computer and phone. Starting last year, nothing. I knew that they both worked in a government office where there were surveillance cameras everywhere. There was nothing they could do to avoid being caught. I checked the credit card receipts that I had been saving up for years. And again, nothing. It seemed like they were only together in the car. They never left early or in separate cars to go to work. They only went alone when one of them was sick, or to family events, or on vacation. They were always at home at the allotted time. The only time they returned home late at night was when they were stuck in heavy traffic due to an accident. An hour and 15 minutes, give or take every day. They never went to conferences or seminars. I guess my gut let me down. That was until Bob came in 6 weeks ago, and then my eldest son, Eric. They were both leaving at the same time. That's when I noticed that they both had the same physique from behind. I went online and ordered home DNA test kits for my children, Eric, Todd, and my youngest, and I asked them not to tell their mother anything. I wanted to surprise her for her birthday. Surprise. Happy birthday, Laura, I shouted. Carol dropped 3 plain vanilla envelopes on the coffee table in front of them. What is it? Laura asked. Carol, and I want you two to open them and read them. Then I'll tell you. Oh shit. I think they don't require an explanation. I snorted. They slowly reached out and opened each of them. Laura turned pale at the first glance. Robert threw up in the basket by the couch. She grabbed the other 2, read them, and cried, I'm so sorry, Steve. I never wanted to do this to you. I thought they were yours. I must have miscalculated the time when I was fertile. Robert came to his senses and began to plead. She promised me that she would be safe. I would never make a cuckold out of my best friend. We weren't best friends. I bet you both enjoyed making fools of Carol and me. I'm not going to shoot you or try to fire you from your job. We're going to divorce you. If I fired you, Laura, I'd have to pay you alimony. I'll keep my pension, and you'll keep yours. We'll split the rest in half. I took all our investments and put them into Anne's trust fund for her college. I canceled all joint credit accounts after I paid them off. I took half of the remaining money and put it in a separate bank account. We will put the house up for sale. All the pleasant memories I had of this place were nothing more than a facade. I've already rented an apartment on the other side of town, as far away from the two of you as possible. I told the kids this morning that I'm not their father, but just a stupid person that you two used. I don't think they're very happy with you, and says she will move in with me when she graduates from school in 2 months. She doesn't want to talk to you, Laura. I haven't said a single disparaging word about you, so you'll have to give her time. Please, Steve, Laura pleaded. I love you. I've always loved you and I always will. I just made a mistake in my cycle. I grinned and shook my head. Laura, I don't think you really believe the nonsense you're trying to sell me. There's an old saying in the Bronx, shit has its own sound. I really love you. I want to grow old with our grandchildren and watch them be born, she cried. Trying not to shoot her, I replied, Laura, there's a problem here. You and I won't have children to look at. As it turns out, I will never have our grandchildren to look at. You can watch them with Bob. She burst into tears again and said, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to do this to you. I looked at Bob, and tears began to flow down his cheeks. He tried to wipe them off before they fell into his lap. Carol came over and began to calm down. Bob, I talked to all your former members of the SEAL team and told them how you betrayed your maritime code of conduct. Not military law, but a code of relations between the Marines themselves. I told them how you've been using your best friend and betraying him and me for the last 23 years. The email says that you are persona non grata for them. I'm sure they'll call you personally. As for you and me, it's over between us. Now I don't have to do housework. I will receive alimony for the rest of my life, or until I get married again. You know what? I will never get married again. I'll just bring men into my house and use them in the bed you pay for. I have already asked my lawyer to block our financial accounts. We will receive benefits until the end of the divorce. I'm going to take everything we have. I'm sure my lawyer will crucify you both for what you two did to us. And I will make sure to play my role in front of the jury as the offended wife who spent 23 years of her life on you. The good news is that I sent the DNA information to your parents, Bob. They are thrilled to have 3 more grandchildren. But Laura, I can't say the same about Steve's family. They were completely heartbroken that they would never have grandchildren. Laura slid off the couch, crying in despair. I waved the gun at Bob. Help her up, Bob. Put her back on the couch. He picked her up and sat next to her, holding her so she wouldn't slip back to the floor. A man entered the room and asked, Are you Mr. Robert Watkins? Yes, Bob replied. You have been served. He turned to Laura. Mrs. Laura Foster? She just shook her head. He put the envelope on her lap and took a picture. You have been served. He turned and walked away. Bob, Carol said, there's a restraining order against you in this package. You have 2 hours to pack your things and get out of the house. I'm not afraid of you as such, but I don't want to deal with you. I'll have it taken off so you can see the children. I think you can move in with Laura. Laura, I want you to go away for the weekend. I'll finish packing and leave on Sunday morning, and you can come home, I told her. Damn it, just think. You can let Bob move in and you can share everything, not just a ride to work. Laura burst into tears again. Okay, Bob, we give up. Bob looked confused by this statement. I continued to explain. Carol and I have been puzzling over how you two got away with this for so long. Well, at least until the day she called you one of her husbands. Since it doesn't matter anymore, tell us how you two have been cuckolding me all these years. Bob sighed and slowly shook his head. In the car while we were driving back and forth to work, Carol and I looked at each other in disbelief. That's it, he said. In the car, never anywhere else. When did it start? About a year after we started traveling together. One day we got stuck in traffic. I was getting a headache from the strain. Laura saw how uncomfortable I was and held out her hand. I came home that day. Well, a month later, I was driving, and Laura started having cramps in her calf, and she was screaming in pain. I told her to put her foot on my lap while I was driving. She was wearing tights and a pencil skirt that day. Then the tension returned. We were tormented by guilt and swore that we would never do this again. But we did it. When did you start making love? We couldn't do it because of the heavy traffic, and we were driving in daylight. Then daylight saving time ended. It was dark in both directions. If there were accidents, we stopped in traffic jams. I always made sure that none of the trucks saw us doing it when she was riding me. That's why our windows were tinted. We didn't need prying eyes. I looked at Laura. Laura, please look at me. She raised her swollen eyes. Please tell me I didn't buy his cream pies. Bob growled and spoke through clenched teeth. This is the most disgusting thing a woman can do to a man. I told her never to do this to you. And if she had, they wouldn't have found her body. She swore she wouldn't do it. Laura squeaked, I swear, I didn't do it. Steve, I swear. I love you with all my heart. I have never refused you. I've always made sure that you have everything you can handle, at least 4 to 5 times a week, if not more. Bob begged Carol. You just don't understand how hard it is to work and stand in traffic every day. Oh, poor baby, Carol replied. You needed to relieve tension after a hard day at the office and fighting traffic jams. Do you remember the week I left to take care of my sick sister? You begged me to come home because you were going crazy, and it was only a week later. Laura, what about poor Steve? He cooked dinner and made sure the house was in order, and the kids did their homework by the time you get home. You know, Steve, maybe we should have had an affair, since we were under pressure to always take care of everything by the time they got home. Laura, I thought you were telling the truth about when it must have started. It seems like I got this every day in the summer. And in the off-season, except for weekends and holidays, you turn me off during the week. What has changed? Laura grimaced. I took the van. Let me guess, about 9 months before each child was born, there was a major accident. You two have been stuck in traffic for 8 hours. I assume you were busy at the time. Both lowered their eyes in shame. Carol asked Bob, you insisted on buying a van. Is that why you wanted it? I turned to Laura. Did you say that you loved me and did not deny me what I paid the full price for by marrying you? It's true, my dear, she replied. I love you with all my heart. What about those evenings when you two made love? You swore you never gave me his cream pies. It's true? Yes. Laura, you're wrong, I said. You've refused me for over 1,000 nights in the long years you've spent in the car together. She looked at me in shock as the gears turned in her head. Then she burst into tears again. Well, Bob, I think you two are going to get up and leave now. As for me, I never want to see you again. You and Carol have kids, so I guess you two still have kids to raise. I will no longer attend family gatherings, since you and Carol have children, and you and Laura have children together. It will make the party interesting without me. Bob looked at me and said, Steve, I'm sorry I was a biological donor, but you're their real father. For some reason, it doesn't make me feel better. Now, you two are leaving. Laura, you can come back on Sunday. Carol helped me pack an overnight bag for you, and your parents are waiting for you. I was sitting in my chair and drinking my Jack and Coke. You have so much tension in your shoulders, she said, leaning over me and whispering in my ear. I want to take all this pressure off. The divorces were over. Bob moved in with Laura. It didn't last long. Curiously, they stopped driving. I continued to date Carol, my daughter, and went to the state capitol, and decided that since I had received the money from Bob as child support, she could now afford to go to a better college. Carol and I had dinner at my house one evening. It was the weekend when the kids were at Bob's, and called me, and when I hung up, I felt like I was going to faint. Carol looked at me with concern and asked, What's the matter, dear? All the children, all 7 of them have just passed the origin test. They want to see how much of the same DNA each of them has. I need to pack up and run. I figure I have a few weeks before Bob and Laura find out that your 4 children with him are actually mine. He'll track me down and tear me into a million pieces. Damn, Carol replied. I'm coming with you. Why? He won't hurt you. He's not the kind of man who can hit a woman. It's easy for you to say. You didn't feed him your cream pies for 23 years.